There we go. Brilliant. Cheers. All right, first game. So it is a Caro Kann only stream. We are only having Caro Kanns. So I can play the white or the black pieces. Doesn't matter as long as it's a Caro. So my opponent goes for the two knights attack. So we'll take on e4. And here, there's a couple of moves. You can go bishop to f5. I'm not sure bishop g4 is all that good. I think that's kind of risky. But I prefer the move knight to f6 in this position. And my opponent plays the tricky move queen to e2. So we'll take on e4, queen takes, and here we kind of have two different options. The first one is queen d5, which is what I normally play. The second one is knight to d7, aiming to bring the knight over to f6. And we actually had a look at a game with this played in yesterday's video, in the Vincent Keimer video. So I'm actually going to try it out myself. So knight f6 attacks the queen. Now, if this queen moves, then we simply develop like bishop g4 or bishop to f5, and we're doing very, very well. The tricky line is knight to e5, because if we take the queen, then we blunder mate in one. So here we have to go e6 to block this bishop. White then retreats the queen, and we can't develop our light squared bishop properly. However, there's the very interesting move pawn to b5, which Keimer played, which I am also going to play here, because this is one of the reasons why I'm quite enjoying looking at the Grandmaster Caro Kann games, because I've never really seen this immediate b5 push before. I've never seen it, and I think it's really interesting. Because, you know, most of you are going to be thinking, Alex, can't your opponent take on c6? Because your queen is under attack, so you can't take the bishop. And that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Except if knight takes c6, black is better. So my opponent goes bishop back to d3. And so the problem with that is that this bishop now is blocking pawn to d4, which will make it very hard for this bishop to develop because it can't come out the way it would normally do. Now, I believe bishop d6 is the way to go. Again, offering up the pawn. I believe. I'm pretty sure we can kind of sacrifice this pawn in a lot of lines, because the argument that we have is like, okay, you can have the pawn if you want, but we're going to play like queen c7, bishop b7, and have quite a strong attack on the king side, which is the kind of thing that we saw Keimer do. So let's go queen c7, and of course bishop b5 is going to be the move that we're really looking at in this position. Just going for both the pawns on c6 and b5, going up 2 pawns. However, I'm not sure it's actually sustainable after bishop to d7. Is it bishop d7? No, it's pawn a6 first and then bishop d7, forcing the bishop back to a4, where it's not protected by the queen. I did do a bit of analysis on that line in the video. So yeah, knight d4 is a strong move, threatening the pawn on b5. So I believe here we probably have to go pawn to a6, defending and preparing bishop to b7. So we've sacrificed a pawn, but the argument is, like I said earlier, which is the same thing that Keimer did, is that because we forced this bishop back to the d3 square, the dark square bishop is going to struggle to develop. So pawn a4, I believe pawn b4 is strong. Let me think a second. Bishop b7 takes, that's a bit risky. If we castle and pawn takes bishop b7, I feel like we're doing a bit much there. This knight is undefended, but I'm not sure there's a great way to exploit that right now. So b4 does look very, very natural to me. I suppose c3 should be considered, because we don't want to take and open up the diagonal for the dark squared bishop even. So if b4 c3 castles takes, that's probably okay. And then the d pawn is weak. Castles immediately. No, let's go b4. Yeah, so knight to f5. That was, again, played in the Keimer game. Playing on the fact that the e-pawn is pinned to my king. So I believe I have to give up the dark squared bishop. But it's not that big a deal because this knight is actually quite a good piece. And we also saw in the Keimer game this idea of pawn to b3, sacrificing a second pawn to force c takes b3 so that this bishop can't develop this way because this bishop is in the way, but also can't fianchetto because white can't play pawn b3 because he has his own pawn on b3 in the way. So that was another very interesting idea, which was another reason I chose to analyze that game in particular. I think we also need to keep an eye on potentially bringing the knight over to f4. That could be quite nice. We have pawn b3 immediately, which I think is a good move. Oh, I'm really, really low on time. Okay, I need to shut up. I need to shut up. I didn't realize how low on time I was. Okay. So, there's no bishop to e4 ideas. That's very good. Let's try and do this. I'm not sure whether I should have gone... Did I have a chance to go b3? No, I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did. I think my opponent's been quite precise with the quick b3 idea. This bishop could be useful, but we'll see. We'll see. If a move like queen to g4... It's a viable move. Maybe e5. Blocking the bishop's diagonal. Maybe f6. Looks risky, though. Not sure about this knight to d5. It's a bit of a panicky sort of move. I'm going to go f6 because I think it's necessary because of ideas like this or this if e5 was played. Don't think I'm getting checkmated. Because there's no, like, nothing can come to g6. Very, very low on time. Okay, let's take. Not sure what else I can do. Counterattack. I don't think he has any checks. And now I'm just probably winning. How is my king safe on f6? That's insane. Oh my god, I just hung my queen. Dude, what am I doing? Oh my god. What am I doing? I just hung my queen. And I hung my rook. Okay, no. What on earth am I doing? Okay, I don't even know why. The thing is, after queen takes rook d8, I'm actually okay. I'm not sure why I played e5. That was a very idiotic move. Yeah, okay. Well, that was a really interesting game, but a terrible, terrible end. Yeah, I'm genuinely doing well. Okay, I did mess up somewhere around here, though. Okay, let's see. So, I should have castled. And after takes, I should have gone e5. Okay. And if knight to... Okay, I need to find e4 here. Can't see I considered that. But the opening was rather good, I think. b5, bishop d3, bishop d6, take, queen c7. We're doing very well. a6 is the correct move. I just need to castle. But b4 is still okay. Castles is wrong. Okay, so either bishop e5 or bishop b7 is better. Let's say take. Let's say castles. Or, no, let's say b3 like my opponent did in the game. Then we take on b2. So I suppose creating quicker counterplay was the way to go. The thing is, though, I did mess up by, I think, moving my knight. I think that was the wrong idea because it allowed the queen in. But after f6, I'm actually doing rather well. I actually have the immediate knight to f4, which I didn't even consider. Allowing this capture and going like this. Didn't consider that. And after here, the only move is g3, apparently. But knight f4 is the correct idea. Takes knight back. Slightly inaccurate, but we're also very low on time, so it can be forgiven. Then here, yeah, king takes is the only move. And there's just, like, no actual attack, which is crazy. And yeah, I was really, really happy with this. We're just completely winning. Although, after queen here, I blundered my queen. I completely missed that, but so did my opponent. I am winning if I take on d1, though. After takes, not takes, but actually rook h8. That's very difficult to find, I have to say. And then, yeah, I end up just completely blundering my queen, which is very frustrating, but okay. The opening was good. The opening was good. So, alright, let's jump into the next one. That is a very Georgian name. Very Georgian name. It's like whenever I watch like the World Cup or something and Georgia are playing, the names are pretty fantastic, I must say. Okay, are we going to get another 2 knights? Let's see. Let's see. Thanks for the kind words, Dan Tange. Thank you very much. Okay, we have an exchange. We'll see. Okay, d4. Yeah, with the knight on f3 already, we're in a pretty good version of the exchange. This knight doesn't really belong on c3, so hopefully I'll be able to show you the shortcomings of this development plan for white, because really the pawn wants to be on c3 or c4, but the knight is in the way, and we control these light squares very nicely in the center, so the knight doesn't really contribute much. Let me think. We could go queen b6, but I'm just going to start with knight to f6 for now. Queen b6 does look tempting. All right, let's go e6. Something like bishop d6, pawn a6, castles. That sort of plan looks rather nice. a3, I'm not really concerned about. b4. No, I don't think so. Let's go bishop d6. This is just obviously a very nice square for the bishop with the pawns on light squares covering all the light squares and the bishop covering the dark squares. It's a really nice setup. We can look to go knight to e4 at some point. My opponent might be preparing a move like bishop to f4, which is quite interesting. So I'm going to start with a6, because I can't go queen c7 because of knight to b5. So we'll start with a6 to prepare queen c7. If bishop to f4 immediately, I think I just castle and allow this capture, because white will spend an awful lot of time going about this plan, and I just get to develop my queen for free. But if I do get a chance to stop it, I think I will. Okay, I could take the knight. I don't think I need to, because even if my opponent kicks me all the way back to g6, 1, he weakens his king side, and 2, because of this knight being on c3, stopping the pawn moving to c3 or c4, the pawn on c2 is a definite weakness. Okay, knight g5, offering me a bishop trade. I don't want to take, because then he takes back with the knight, and he gets to reposition it to a better square like f4, and move the pawn. So I don't really want to encourage him to do that. Therefore, I'm going to decline the trade and drop my bishop back to this nice diagonal. If he wants to offer me a trade on d3, I think I probably let him take me to open up the h-file. And again, he has to waste more time moving this knight away to get it into the game and bring the pawn into the game. Also, the knight on g5 is just misplaced, so I can probably kick it away whenever I want, really. So I'm rather happy with this. Yeah, bishop d3, okay. So I can't go h6 because of takes, and then I ruin my structure, and I hang e6. So I could start with queen c7, trying to take away the f4 square for the bishop, which I think I quite like. And then you see the point of a6, because if a6 wasn't on the board, then knight b5 would be very bad for us, because it would win our bishop, and we'd have to waste time moving our queen again. So moves like rook c8 are going to be very natural, getting on the c-file. Okay, pawn b4. Pawn b5, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes isn't a concern. if b5 and b4 is ever played, sorry, a4 is ever played, I assume I can just take on b4. Is this a big deal, though? Okay, you know what? We'll start with rook c8, because this knight is just a weakness. We're threatening something like knight takes b4, pawn takes b4, and queen takes on c3, winning a pawn. So, yeah, I think rook c8 makes sense. You'll notice that I'm also delaying castling, because I don't think we need to rush. Okay, we have pawn b5. So we do have to be slightly careful. We do have to be careful, because if we take, then knight takes is going to be very bad. So we don't want to allow knight b5. Some of you might be thinking of knight to c4. Sorry, knight to d4 even. But after bishop takes, this knight is defended. However, we do have this very interesting bishop f4 move. So if knight d4, bishop d4, bishop f4... I quite like the look of that. I don't know whether that's a bit over the top, but it looks really interesting. We could also consider taking the bishop, but I guess he can always take my knight. We also have something simple like knight back to e7. Take. I don't think he's ever forcing the pawn through, although maybe taking like this is interesting. My bishop should cover. Gotta say, this does look very, very appetizing, and I'm also incredibly low on time yet again. Wait, takes here, then the knight is undefended, so I can just take and then take. Yeah, he may win this pawn with takes, and takes, but I think a3 is pretty weak, to be honest. So okay, let's see if knight d4 works. I think it should work. It's a bold move. I mean, we even have ideas of e5, to be fair, after bishop takes, kicking the bishop away and winning the knight. But I think it's cleaner to go bishop to f4, because there's just so many things under attack in the white position that I don't think it can be held together. So let's go bishop f4. He could take my knight, but the thing is, in all of these lines, his queen hangs with check, which is a big problem. Jason, how's it going, mate? Good to see you again. Good to see you. You just missed me sacrificing material. Okay. Well, I suppose I could just take the knight. He takes... No, b6. I'm pretty happy to see b6, to be honest. Let's go queen c6. Keeping an eye on this knight. The bishops are still staring at each other. Let's take. Castle. No, it was a good sacrifice. Okay, my bishop isn't particularly happy though, I will say. g4 could be problematic. Alright, let's try and get a queen trade. Okay, brilliant. Very, very active rook. Take. Okay, now I'm pretty happy. f5, bishop g7 could be rather nice. Also bringing the rook in. b6 is quite weak. I suppose I could have considered a5. Alright, I think we just grab this pawn. Now we're up 2 pawns. And I'm going to try and freeze this in place. Target this. Try and force this rook over. And then we'll bring the central pawns up the board. Push. Got to be slightly careful with how I do this. This is a very, very nice rook. h5 probably isn't necessary, but let's offer a trade. Yes, push. I just missed a fork. Lol. I'm probably playing a bit too passively, but I just want to make sure I'm not blunder. Oh, I just missed that. Okay, let's take it now. Push. And then, yeah, we just have 4 passed pawns in a blob. and my opponent resigns. Okay, GG. Very interesting game. So that it started off as a yeah, GG man, GG. It started off looking like it could be a 2 knights, but after takes and takes, we kind of just have a good version of the exchange. And after knight c3, you can already see that black is very slightly better, because the knight is just misplaced on the c3 square. And obviously we saw the problems with that when I had those tactics later on, utilizing the weakness of the knight on c3. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether those tactics were the best in the world or not, but like they looked pretty good. And you can already see like black is significantly better in this structure. I would say mainly because these two pieces are not very well placed. So we've queen up, a6, here, knight up. I actually thought my opponent might go bishop f4, which is actually the best move. Looking for a bishop trade here, I was going to castle and go for something like this. Instead, we have the knight up. Bringing the bishop back is the best move, because if I take on e2, then the knight takes, and that means that this pawn can come to a more useful square, blocking up the c-file, and the knight can reposition itself to a square like f4, or maybe g3, which is far more active than c3, which is why I retreated the bishop instead. Queen c7. Okay, here I actually have the immediate knight b4, because if takes, bishop b4 pins the knight and wins it. I have to say I completely missed that. But again, showing how weak the knight is. We have rook over, which is still good. b5. Okay, taking isn't the best move, but it is completely winning. So takes, bishop f4. Queen moves. And yeah, we just take. Pawn pushes, which surprised me. I assumed he was going to take here. After something like takes, and maybe castles, I thought this pawn on a3, the pawn on c3, the pawn on c2 and the knight on c3 are all kind of problematic. So we have b6, queen up, castles. Not the most precise way to go about it. And to be fair, I was slightly concerned about g4 in this position. And I was going to go knight to e4, trying to alleviate some pressure. Of course, the knight is hanging, so you have to take, and after d takes, the queen is under attack, the queen moves, and then I get to go g6 and bring my bishop back so it doesn't get trapped. But yeah, the endgame, not played perfectly, since there was obviously time pressure. But overall, I was happy with the general... The general ideas of the endgame. I mean, we were just completely winning the whole time because the pawn blob advances and there's very little that white can do about it. So GG to David, I assume. Let's go for the next game. So we've had an exchange and we've had a 2 knights so far. We'll see what we get next. So of course, e4. Okay, well, as long as he goes e4 next move. No, okay, well, we're not playing that. It's a Caro Kann only stream, people. It's a Caro Kann only stream. Please play the Caro Kann. While I do like playing the Centurion system against the London, we're not doing that. we're playing the Caro. So, okay. Against Inferno again. We'll open with e4, so my opponent can play the Caro. And let me think. I think we should play the advanced variation. See what my opponent goes for. Okay, he goes for the Botvinnik Karls. So, knight f3. This is the line that I used to play with the black pieces. But I have to say, I always struggled with this particular line from the black side. So, therefore, I will play it now and see if I can remember why I used to hate it so much. The problem for black is it's very, very difficult for him to win back his pawn. And by going e6, he, of course, blocks his bishop inside of the pawn chain. I'm pretty sure we can still hold on to the pawn with bishop e3 anyway, to be fair. Just defending our extra pawn. Knight g to e7. I believe the move is c3, preparing bishop d4. So, of course, if the bishop is taken, we take back with the pawn, and our central pawns are completely dominant, so you can't take the bishop. And I think we have a very simple plan of something like a3, b4. Yeah, I'm not sure you can take this. Because how are you ever winning my pawns back? Well, my pawn back. Yeah, no, I think we're just much better now. So you can see the problems with this system for black. Not to mention the fact that his light square bishop isn't very good. So let's get castled. B6, well, we love to see that because he wants to trade. Now, we do have a couple of options. Knight A4 is somewhat interesting, but I think taking makes the most sense. We'll try and utilize this 2 versus 1. Okay, Queen B6. Did I underestimate that? No, we have Bishop H7 ideas, so that's fine. If here. No, that doesn't work. If Queen D2, yeah, Queen D2 probably. If knight takes, queen takes, then Bishop H7, check picks up the queen. Very common tactical idea. Normally seen in the French defense, which this structure does somewhat look like. So, okay, maybe my opponent will try bishop to a6 to get rid of this bishop, but I think I'm happy with that trade because I am up a pawn after all. And he could try and bring the game back down a pawn. That's not, like, completely unheard of, but it will be difficult. Also, can I please remind people to make the games unrated? My opponent seems to have made it rated by accident, so please remember to make them unrated. So we do have bishop a6. The reason I mentioned this move and why I predicted it is because it's a very common move in the French defense, which is why it's useful to know ideas in different openings, even if you don't play them yourself. So I think I want to expand like this. Maybe bring my knight over to the c5 square. That looks rather nice. So let's start with a3. Maybe my opponent will try and take c4. Yep. Here. I think we still go for it. I completely blundered that. Okay, well, that was silly. That was really, really silly. Now we get to be down the exchange, which is ridiculous to allow. I've also allowed this infiltration. Although I suppose I can kick it away. Okay, I don't know why I did that. All right, then. B5? Queen A5, A4. Yeah, I think that's fine. The B5 doesn't actually threaten anything, does it? Okay, that was a really silly blunder. Let's go B5. He doesn't have to move his queen, but I would assume he probably will. Yeah. A4. My knight isn't amazing. Also, A6 is a problem. I'm gonna have to move my knight. I think I'm just losing because, yeah, A6 is happening. And that's gonna be that. I guess if here. Maybe I can go back. Then he just takes. No, that's completely lost. I think I can resign, to be fair, but I guess... I'm just losing the pawn. No, I can resign this. This is completely lost. Yeah, no, the game was much better for me. Much better until I decided to give up an exchange for no reason. GG to my opponent. Here, I actually have a much better move of knight a4. I considered this, but I thought that after queen a5, my knight just had to retreat. Ah, the engine wants this, and then knight... Okay, that makes sense. That's much faster. Guys, please, can we make the games unrated when you send them, though? Because it's... you know, it's not great when it kind of messes with my climb to 2300. Losing 15 elo in one game is rough. Okay, nastiness. Can we have a Caro Kann this time, please? Can we have a Caro? Yes. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay, what should we play? Let's play the classical with knight to c3, and we'll play the von Hennig gambit, which is incredibly strong. We have knight f6. Can I remember? Yeah, no, I think f3 is the move. Trying to sacrifice the pawn in full. The interesting line... There are some interesting lines after bishop to f5, which is what I personally play with the black pieces. What opening do I recommend for a 1400 rated player with white? Well, the thing is, when you play with the white pieces, it's kind of black that determines the opening. When you're playing with white, I suppose the only row... Okay, that's lost. That's lost. There is bishop takes, king takes, and knight to e5 check, picking up the bishop. We can also consider the immediate knight to e5, because if this, we have checkmate on f7. However, after this, there is bishop back to e6, so it's better to go bishop f7 check first. So, yeah, sorry, with the white pieces, you're kind of responding to what black wants to do. I personally recommend e4 as the first move for white, but it's kind of whether you want to go e4, d4, c4, or maybe maybe pawn g3 or knight f3. Although those often transpose into the c4 lines anyway. I would say pick e4 or d4. I prefer e4, but you can do whatever you want. So yeah, after knight e5 check, the pin on the knight is irrelevant now because the knight moves with tempo. Which means that after the king moves, we are simply going to win the piece back. And material is equal. Because remember, we gambited a pawn earlier on f3 anyway. So, although we did win the f7 pawn, material is equal. But it's not equally equal. Because the black king can't castle. He has this very weak pawn on e7. The reason it's weak is because it can never come to e5. Because I have so much control over it. And one of the big problems here for black is going to be how he develops this rook. That's going to be problematic. Okay, let me think. Queen e2 is strong, probably. Threatening queen e6 checkmate. If something like queen e2, pawn h6. We have options. We have options. We could just castle. Getting the rook on the open f-file can't be a bad thing. Can't be a bad thing. I want white to take... Sorry, I want black to take on g4, because I want my queen on g4 coming here. Okay, we have pawn e6. I could go for this, although that does allow a queen trade after takes and takes, which I don't really want. So, what else can we do? I suppose bishop to g5 makes a lot of sense, pinning the knight. We have a lot of pressure on this knight. We have 3 pieces attacking it. We can add a 4th. Okay, bishop e7 as expected. Here I was going to play queen e2. Because if you take on g4, you might be thinking, oh, knight g4, queen g4, and bishop to g5 wins a piece. Yes, except this is checkmate on e6. That's the issue. And that is good game. GG to my opponent. Don't you think e4 is a lot more difficult because there are a lot of responses? Yeah, you can absolutely argue that. So if you prefer d4 for more simplicity, that's perfectly reasonable as well. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go over this game because the von Hennig gambit is really, really hard to play against with the... Oh my god, I didn't mean to do that. The von Hennig is really hard to play against with the black pieces. So after knight c3, you should take, and normally white takes back. But after bishop to c4, you can see that black is better, but proving it can be difficult. So knight f6 is good. Pawn f3 looks to sacrifice the pawn. Taking is the best move, I believe. But bishop f5 is my personal favorite move here. My opponent, however, chooses to take. We have knight takes. And here, I mean, bishop g4 is just already losing, which is crazy. Because, yeah, there's either bishop f7 or the immediate knight to e5. Now, the immediate knight to e5 could be argued is more prettier, I suppose. Because if takes, then bishop f7 is checkmate. However, there is bishop back to e6, and after takes and takes, I mean, white is still much better, but I prefer to take here and just win the pawn, stop the king from castling, knight e5 check, whoops, sorry. And after knight takes g4, normally you will see takes and takes, and I have had games where my opponent just blunders checkmate in one. But we have knight bd7, which is a good move. We have castles, which is fine, e6. And yeah, bishop g5, bishop e7, and queen e2 sets a very difficult trap. I wanted to go queen e2 immediately, but I rejected it because of queen to e8. Whereas after bishop g5, I was trying to make my opponent play bishop e7, which is actually a mistake. Because now after queen e2, you can't defend with the queen because the bishop is in the way. So here you probably have to go knight f8, which is not particularly pretty. But my opponent takes on g4, which looks good. Because after queen g4 and bishop takes g5, I do have checkmate on e6, of course. But if I play anything else, then black is up a piece. Even if I play something else, I'm still actually better. No, sorry, not better. I'm not completely lost, even though I'm down a piece because of the black king. But yeah, queen e6 is just checkmate in one. So GG to my opponent. Let's jump into the next one. Let's go, e4. We want to see c6. Yep. So, okay, d4, d5. We've played the advanced. We've played the classical. Well, the von Hennig, I suppose. Let's go knight c3 again. Let's see what my opponent goes for. And, I mean, you should take this, because what are the alternatives? The alternatives are really knight f6, which allows this. I mean, that just blunders a pawn, no? I have seen people play pawn a6, which I think is kind of interesting. But knight d7 just blunders a pawn. And if queen a5 check, it looks like you're winning a piece, but I just have knight back. So after knight b6, taking looks fine, but retreating also looks fine. I've got to say, this knight on e3 looks very powerful. Often if you can get a knight to e3 or d3, or in reverse, d6 or e6, it can be a really, really strong piece. Because how does this bishop develop when my knight is controlling its development squares? So we have e6, let's go knight to f3. And this just looks very powerful. c4 is interesting, but I think I'll just start with bishop d3 and castles. I can always throw in c4 at a later point. And yeah, we just up a clean pawn. So knight f6, let's castle. I might actually fianchetto and go c4. That looks like a really interesting option. Okay. Nice. Let's go c4. Let's try and get him to take me. I could actually take with the f-pawn, which wouldn't be ridiculous to take a massive, massive center and play for e5. We have knight f4, which isn't a bad idea at all. Let's drop the bishop back to c2. Okay. We have castles kingside. Knight e5 looks interesting. g3 just allows this, which I'd rather not allow. We could continue with c5, bishop back and knight c4, looking for this, although it does give away the d5 square. b3 preparing bishop to b2 also looks reasonable, but this knight is very, very annoying, very well placed. Rook e1, maybe? I don't think rook e1 can be a bad move. I mean, this knight is good, but it doesn't really have any support other than this bishop, so I'm not really concerned about it doing anything extraordinary. I might drop my knight back to f1 to open this up. Okay, we have pawn to b6, preparing bishop to b7. I think maybe now is the time for knight e5 to cut the connection between the bishop and the knight, preparing something like this. And if takes and takes, now this pawn will be well supported by the rook. Okay, well, that just blunders a knight. Yeah, I mean, obviously I was expecting something like knight d7 there. And you again see this knight on e3 being quite strong. There's no knight to g4. Even if an exchange happens, the knight will have to drop back. And I mean, it's fine for for black, I suppose. Maybe this is kind of weak, to be fair, but okay, gf6. Let me think. Let me think. Check. King moves. Oh, knight g4 looks strong. Looking at this. Congrats for 21k subs, bro. Thank you, Saurine. I appreciate it, man. It's been a really good journey so far. Been a really good journey, but yeah. I don't know. It's just incredibly surprising to me that many people want to watch the videos I make. Because I have to say, they're not particularly high effort. Like, I don't know, just playing chess, looking at chess, talking about chess. I just enjoy that regardless. So I always figured that we might as well start a YouTube channel about it, because I'm gonna do it in my own time, no matter what. Okay. Let's think. Well, Queen f3. That was the whole idea. Attacking the rook and attacking the knight on f4 now that this bishop is opened up. Which is why I needed to include knight g4, because if I played it immediately, if I played queen here immediately, then bishop to b7, sorry, in this position, if queen f3, then bishop b7, I can't take, of course, because my bishop isn't seeing the knight. So now after pawn e5, 21.1k, yeah, true. Defending the knight, attacking my knight. That's interesting, actually. So if takes, then takes, I assume. Okay. We could throw in something like knight f6. King here. We could take the knight first. I kind of want to take the knight first. I am up a piece anyway, so I don't necessarily have to grab the rook. Let's give him tripled pawns. Here. Yeah, we'll do that. Then we'll bring the queen to e4, I think. No, okay. Let's bring the queen... Wait, no. Well, let's go bishop to b3, counter-attacking. And then we can bring the queen back and defend the knight. I didn't want to hang my bishop for no reason. And then we should just be up a lot of material, a rook and a knight. He can't move the queen with an attack on the knight, because e6 is obviously covered. Let's drop back. My knight is a little bit stranded, to be fair, but go rook to c1. h3, h5, knight back to h2. I'm allowing rook d2 for some reason. I also didn't really know why I played that. I was going to go for this. Okay, I'm panicking a bit. I'm not going to lie. Okay, let's take. Let's challenge the rook. I'm terrible in a time scramble. Let's defend. Takes. Check. Let's give a check. Give a check. Give checkmate on d6. Okay. Yeah, I definitely made that a little bit more complicated than it needed to be, although I don't think I blundered anything. GG to my opponent. Sorry, queen h3 was a move rather than queen takes a8. Yeah, but I mean... Oh, I suppose I am threatening checkmate. I didn't see that, to be fair. I guess I just saw this and was like, I don't really want to step into that. But no, that makes sense. That makes sense. GG, man. GG. So yeah, this is the thing. After knight to c3, you have to take. There's nothing else. Obviously, my opponent went knight d7, which just blunders a pawn. And like I said in the game, queen a5 doesn't work because we just drop the knight back. And we block the check. A6 is an interesting option if you really don't want to take. I actually used to play this myself occasionally. There is the very interesting G6, the Gurganitsa system, which I have some videos on my channel from the black side. Very interesting line. Knight to f6 is no good, really, because of e5, and this is just a bad version of the French, because the pawn has come to c6 for no reason, basically. So yeah, GG. Very interesting. Let's get the... Okay, Travis. Hey, man. How's it going? Good to see you. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, let's see. We have the advanced variation. So we'll play bishop to f5. We have the Tal attack with h4. So we'll play h5. Okay, bishop to d3. We'll, of course, take that. Play pawn to e6. Yeah, pawn e6. Because you have to be slightly careful of white playing pawn e6 in these lines. So my opponent clearly knows his theory. There's some very interesting lines after queen to b6. Let me just think. Queen b6. I think it's knight d2. Pawn c5, pawn c4. Yeah, I think I know these lines. And we don't actually have to go c5, but it is the best move. So c4 is really, yeah, and my opponent plays it. Now, let me see if I can remember. I think it's here. I think it's there. If rook here, then we take, I believe. Knight c... Is knight c6 a move? No, I don't think so. Because after something like takes as e6. So I think we have to take now. This is one of the very dangerous lines. Very dangerous lines. Let's take on d4. We're up 2 pawns, but only temporarily. Most likely. Okay, takes. Takes. I thought this was okay for us after knight to c6. Knight c6. Yeah, I think this is fine, right? I suppose we don't have to go knight c6, but it looks like we should. If we take and take, then we're asking for trouble. Yeah, let's go knight c6. I think we're okay here. e5 is weak. Knight f3, sorry. Knight f3. What do we want there? What do we want? Could even play a cheeky move like d3. It seems a bit unnecessary, though. Maybe just knight e7? Or bishop e7, maybe? Might be easier. And we probably get out of this with an extra pawn. We have a passed d pawn, obviously. I'm not sure how strong it is, but we do have it. Okay, knight g to f3. If this is ever taken, we can take on e5. Although I think the move is actually f6. I think the move might be f6. If I remember. Trying to play against this bishop. Audio and video is desynced only for me. Oh, is it? Is it desynced? Let me check. Apologies if it is. Please let me know, guys, if it is desynced. Let me check. Oh my god, come on. It is desynced. Oh, okay. Let me check. It looks fine to me. It looks fine to me, I'm not gonna lie. Are you sure? I can try, let me try a couple things then. Give me a sec. Is that any better? I've just reset my mic and my webcam. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure then. Maybe I need to add a stream delay. Okay, let me just finish this game first, and then we'll try and fix it. Takes bishop takes. I'm not really a fan of. 97, I think I kind of like. So we're gonna go knight g to e7, preparing something like knight g6 or knight f5. If takes, then I get to go e5, which looks quite nice. Also, if takes, I can now take with a knight, rather than having to ruin my structure a bit. Very interesting position. Very interesting position. It's like I've got a... I don't know. I don't even know what to call that. It's kind of like a C. Although not really a C. It's kind of cool, though. We are still up a pawn, remember. But this is one of the ways to... Oh, okay, yeah. Refresh the stream then, guys. Refresh the stream. And let me know if that fixes it. Awesome, brilliant. Thank you for troubleshooting that, guys. All right, we have castles. I think knight g6. Attacking the bishop. Okay, bro. Grand. Love that. Okay, so if takes, I'm not a fan. So I should probably take back. Structure isn't amazing, but after something like bishop here and pawn takes, I should be good. Counter-attacking. That makes sense. Rook here. Knight takes. Meh. Take. No, I don't like that. It's a good move. It's a good move. Could go knight back, though. Attacking the rook. And then I'll take the bishop. I don't see a problem with that. Good morning, Burn. How's it going, mate? Good to see you. Okay, I think this is just winning. It's a nice move, actually. But you can take the knight, but I'll take the bishop. Yeah, but I have enough defense here, so I should be okay. Take back with the knight. Yeah, it's a move. Just come back. Yeah, I think knight d8 is better than knight to a5 because the knight was loose on the a5 square. All right, GG Travis. Very, very impressive theory. That was very impressive theory. Yeah, let's have a look at that. So if you play the Caro, the tile attack is one of the scariest lines. And you might be saying, Alex, why have you played h5 in that position? The problem is that if we play a move like e6, we simply lose our bishop after g4, bishop e4, f3, bishop g6, h5. Our bishop is just trapped. So we have to go either h6 or h5. The h6 lines aren't as good, though, because after h6, there is g4. And after bishop e4, f3, bishop h7, there's this very tricky move e6, which I referenced earlier in the game, trying to sacrifice a pawn to create problems on this diagonal towards the king. It's not fun. Also makes it hard to develop this bishop because we can't get our pawn up properly. So h5 is much better. Yeah, man, you played that really well. Really good theory. So e6 stopped white from going e6. Because if we play like anything else, let's say we go knight d7, we're just completely lost after e6. And we actually can't take because of checkmate in 1, which is crazy. So that's why we go e6. Bishop g5, queen to b6, trying to counterattack. And then after knight to d2, things get kind of crazy. We are actually almost losing unless we go c5, crazy as it may sound. A move like bishop e7 looks very natural, but after knight f3, we are very much worse. So c5 immediately breaking the center is the way to go. If this is taken, bishop c5, black is much better. So the best move is c4. There is also knight e2, just supporting the center. But here we get a very slow game after something like takes and takes, knight c6. This is exactly what we want. So my opponent plays the critical line with c4. And here we have to take on b2. It is the only move. Now, the best move for white here is actually rook d1. It looks really strange. So after rook b1, queen d4, the game is actually equal. After takes and takes, rook takes. Knight c6 isn't the best move. Knight d7 is slightly better, but actually f6 is best, which I realized later was the way to go. I completely forgot about this move. And if the bishop retreats, then after knight d7, if takes and g takes, we get the massive center that we want. So yeah, this is a bit inaccurate, but we're still fine. f6 is now the best move. Bishop back, castle. Oh, I completely forgot about castle queenside. Completely forgot about this move. Although knight g to e7 is also very good. So we have castles, knight over. Taking is slightly better. Here, bishop g3 is best, but my opponent takes. Here, I actually have the immediate knight d8. I missed it initially. So after takes, rook over, now knight d8 has the same effect. The rook is under attack, the bishop is under attack. My opponent tries to make things complicated, which I think was a very good attempt, because if I take the bishop, for example, I'm actually losing after rook e1 or pawn f7 check. So he does make it complicated, but yeah, here, rook check. I don't really mind about my knight because the bishop is hanging, and after the bishop moves and my knight moves, I have good enough defense. And my opponent played well to try and create complications, but here, there is just nothing. I'm up an entire rook at this point. So GG, very interesting game. I'm just going to pop to the loo quickly, and if you guys can send over another challenge, then we'll get into the next game. All right, we're back. Let's go. Next game. We have the white side again. So let's go e4. Of course, we have a Caro. And let's go knight c3 again. I'm really enjoying these von Hennig games. Bishop c4. And so yeah, I mean, knight f6 and bishop f5 are both the best moves here. Defending the pawn. I don't have an immediate threat, so you might as well hang on to the pawn. Yes, we have knight f6, pawn f3. It's such an easy gambit, in my opinion. maybe I'm underestimating complexities. I don't know. Seems very easy to me, though. Okay, so we could take this. We could also push. Not sure about that. This is interesting. Okay. If I take and take, that doesn't look any good, I don't think. Oh wait, no, I do have knight here. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. If queen takes, pawn takes, knight b5, knight there. I'm actually not sure now. I'm actually not sure. Oh, my opponent says he's got to go. Oh. Okay. That's unfortunate. Okay then. Fair enough. Alright, so c5 is actually a rather nice move. And here the best move is d5, which I considered. But I thought after takes and takes, with this diagonal shut off, I wasn't really sure about the plan. If bishop here, castles apparently just much better. I guess it's really hard for black to develop, actually, because e6 is tough to play. And of course, you can't bring the knight to c6. So after something like knight d7, bishop f4, g6, let's say, knight b5 is apparently very strong, but okay, that's interesting. But all right. That goes out the window because my opponent had to go. All right, we're against quite a strong opponent, Louis Gugolo Diet. Is he going to play a Von Hennig against me? Let's see. No, okay, he goes for the main line. We'll see if he goes into a Tartakawa, which he does. We have pawn c3. Let's go bishop to f5, which is my favorite move. Trying to play against bishop to d3. Let's take that. And go bishop d6. Yeah, my opponent understands this opening well by the looks of it. The knight is much better on e2, looking at the f4 square, or coming to g3 and looking at the f5 square. Castles, go queen c7, eyeing up h2, also controlling f4 another time. And then we probably want to bring the knight over to d7, the rook to e8, bring the knight over to a square like g6 eventually. Okay, h3 is interesting. Let's start with rook e8. Very normal development. Something like knight d7, knight f8, knight g6. Okay, bishop e3. Sure. No worries, man. No worries. Rook f2 e1. Sure. So we could actually look to double up here, which, gotta say, looks pretty appetizing. Looks pretty appetizing. Let's do it. We don't have an immediate threat, but I mean, this is the only open file, so I might as well take control of it. We could also look for f5, f4 in the future. Even like g6, f5 looks rather interesting. Could throw this in. Not sure what it achieves, though. So let's leave it. I assume he's trying to push for d5, which makes a lot of sense. If g6, he could always go bishop h6. But then these are kind of weak. So let's do it. Also, I have knight to f6 in these lines. I guess if f5, he could go bishop g5, but I think f6 should be okay in that position. I think we can get away with it. I'd rather not have to play it, but I think it's okay. We could even look for f4, f3 in some lines. Okay, let's go f5. Wait. I'm just completely missing this. Okay. I'm an idiot, I guess. No, there's just c5. What am I doing? Yeah, there's just c5. Okay, okay. That's an idiotic move. That's an idiotic move. Okay, how do we... So we can give this check, which I think we will have to do. Now, my opponent will try and trap the bishop with g3. Now, I think f4 might work, though. f4, bishop back. I don't know. I don't know, actually. Okay, what else can we do? What else can we do? If knight f6, g3, how do we punish that? I don't think we can. If knight e4, king h2, we don't have anything. Let me think. Bishop f4 doesn't really work. Bishop takes. Rook takes. Rook takes. No. Here, 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 here. Take, take, take. King up is fine for white. F4, bishop d2. Do we have anything? Rook d8, g3, 95. Queen c2. Knight f3, king g2. Not seeing anything amazing. I think this is my best try. There is also this, but there's not a lot I can do about it. No, I've completely messed that up. Also, I'm super low on time at this point, which isn't helping my cause at all. This is not giving me much hope for my classical game later, I will say. This is not giving me loads of hope. It's just a silly blunder, but I don't know. I could have considered sacrificing the exchange and going bishop g3. I just didn't think I have any... I don't know, maybe I do actually have counterplay there. Maybe that was better. Maybe that was better. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. That might have been the better try. That might have been the better try. But okay, we'll stick with what we've gone for. Stick with what we've gone for. I'm trying to get two pieces for... Sorry, a rook for two pieces. And try and play that. Okay. I've got no time to calculate anything. I'm just playing moves. The knight doesn't really have many moves. I don't have anything here. I do have time complications, though. Whoa, what? I'm really confused. My king is somehow safe. And I think I'm just delivering checkmate no matter what. Okay, well that was that was a very interesting game. Yeah, I completely messed up in that middle game. So the key position was after c4. f5 is actually the best move. In this position, I am better. I am better. Only if I find knight f6, which I was calculating. But after g3, now I have to find rook takes. And this I missed. Because now, after takes and takes, I get a pawn and a knight for a rook. But the problem is the king, the h3 pawn, the e3 pawn, and my knight is very strong. Completely missed that. GG, man. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, though, in this position, it would have been far, far easier to do anything else. Like bishop b4, rook d1, f5 now. That's far easier. I should have gone for that, to be honest. We get away with it, though. Interesting position. Let's go the next one against Felix. All right. We have a Panov attack. Okay, this is what I personally play with the white pieces most of the time. We'll see what line he goes for. See what line he goes for. The main line is knight f3. I like the bishop to g5 line. He does go knight to f3. And we're going to go for the fianchetto setup, which can generate a lot of counterplay on the d4 pawn in the long run. I want to delay the move bishop g4 because there's a lot of complications with ideas of like queen b3, and yeah, it can get very complicated, and there are some forced endgames as well, which I don't want to go into. So, okay, cd5, we'll go knight d5, bishop c4. I think the move is knight back. I can consider this. I'm not sure if it's good in this position though, because if knight g5. I don't think so. I think knight back is the way to go. Just attacking the light squared bishop. We always have to be watching for the possibility of pawn to d5. Bishop b3. I think bishop g7 if pawn to d5. Knight here, bishop blocks, I think is okay. Also, we actually have knight e5 if we would prefer, but let's get castled. You can see the pressure is already building, especially if bishop g4 lands. Could be interesting. d5 is viable. It might even be a good move. This is apparently transposed into a Grunfeld, by the way. All right, let's go bishop g4. So you can see the culmination of our position is basically insane amounts of pressure on the d4 pawn, because it's basically going to be undefended. All right, bishop e3. So if we play takes, takes, and takes, the idea would be for white to win the e6 pawn, sorry, e7 pawn at the end of the line. If we go e6 and d5 occurs, take, knight takes, bishop takes. b2 does hang, though. I think e6 should be fine. I think that should be fine. There are also some lines where we try to maneuver this knight into the d5 square to act as a blockade. But yeah, kind of the whole thing is whether black can win the d4 pawn or not, and whether white can push the pawn to d5 or not. That's kind of the big thing in the Panov, at least in these versions of it. And I find them very interesting from both sides, really. So, alright, let's see what my opponent goes for. If h3, okay, no, he does push. He does push. This doesn't really seem all that good because it takes. Yeah, that doesn't look great. Suppose I should probably be taking, although knight takes might be better. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, rook b1. Bishop back, rook b7. Knight e5. Bishop g5. Knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. I think that works. I think that works. I want to take with the knight, because if I take with the pawn, my opponent could throw this in. Alright, knight takes. Let's take. So my opponent liquidates his weak, isolated d-pawn by playing d5, which is a key idea in lots of isolated pawn positions. I have to say, I didn't consider queen takes. I'm not sure it's that good, though. Because now the b file is shut, because the bishop is on b3 rather than on d5. So after I come back, if takes and takes, I should be okay. Also, now does... No. If bishop here, then bishop... So queen here. No, I don't like that. I don't want to take either, so let's go to f5, hitting the rook. Still a very complicated position. I mean, I know we're up a pawn, but the game is far from over. This bishop is very good looking at a7, especially if this knight gets eliminated. Alright, rook bd1. Yeah, that makes sense. If takes, bishop takes, rook d8, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes, bishop takes. Not sure I love that. Here. Okay, let's go to c7. Let's try and keep an eye on the knight. There's no bishop f4 for the time being, so it's okay. I'm not too concerned about rook c1. I mean, the c file is a bit rough, but I don't think it's losing. Now bishop e6 is a very good move to try and trade the bishops. Queen d6. But this should be a good trade. This should be good. Although no, that is interesting. I think he's going to pick up the pawn on a7, and I'm not sure there's anything I can do about it. Okay, let's just play this. It's probably a draw, but I'm very, very low on time, so I can't be doing with too much complication. Alright, let's take. Okay, the white king is slightly more active than mine. Should be able to fix that relatively easily, though. Okay, well, that's now a fixed weakness. Fixed on a dark square. Okay, I feel like we are doing rather well now. Now there's two weaknesses. Now, okay, now I'm very happy. Our pawns are on light squares. Our king is more active. White has two weaknesses. It looks like it could be very difficult for white to hold here. Very difficult. Bishop c5. Let's try and just wait and see what happens. I'm keeping my pawns on light squares. Okay, that's a free pawn. And that should be game. Keep an eye on this pawn. Let's move up. The bishop defends. Pawn h4 should be good. and that should be GG. Yeah, my opponent played incredibly well, but the end. Okay, I don't know what he said. He said something in what I assume is Romanian. But yeah, that is difficult because he played incredibly well. The problem is that once he played pawn f4, pawn f4 looks like a very bad move to me. And the engine says it's equal, but I mean, only I can win this once f4 is on the board. I was expecting a move like f3 and after like king c6. I thought if he retreats the bishop, then after this he can move the king to d4. And then he has a more active king than me, and I thought this was rather nice for my opponent. But after f4, I thought I should be better. So here, I get king c6. Not the best move. No, actually, no, it is good. But yeah, this is lost. b4 is losing. Because now there's two weaknesses. One weakness is... Okay, yeah, you can defend one weakness on f4, but two weaknesses, no. And the problem is, I also get the very active king. Now, to be fair, I could have taken immediately, but it's not actually a rush. I mean, how are you going to defend both? Like, bishop c5, sure, but I'm in no rush. Now, obviously, this gives me an extra pawn, but you know. My opponent says, thank you for all the videos with the Panov attack. Very helpful. Hope I did well. I wanted to get into another line. No, you played very, very well, mate. Very, very well. The opening was very good, and he kept his nerve in some difficult positions. Here, bishop g4, we are slightly better. Pushing d5 was definitely the correct option. Very, very good to go for it quickly. I did think that bishop takes was stronger. Queen takes is fine, but bishop takes is slightly better. Rook a b1, bishop back. Bishop f5 is the only good move. Here, queen d5 is best, and after bishop takes, I need to find bishop c3. Knight. Okay, no, I didn't even consider this. What's the point? Rook a b8, bishop to d5, bishop to... Okay, I didn't consider anything like this. I don't know. I don't know. That's very complicated. With the center wide open, it's very hard to figure this out. But yeah, okay. Bishop back. And this should just be a dead draw. It should be a dead draw. But I don't know. I think, okay, trading knights isn't the best. I should have kept my knight on the board, but I was very low on time, so I thought in a bishop endgame, I can't lose this. And obviously we went to see that my opponent made a couple of small mistakes, but it adds up, unfortunately. So, all right, let's jump into the next one. Another Caro, of course. There we go. Oh, no, we have to have e4, or I will have bought the game. We need e4. No, it's a Caro Kann only stream. Guys, it's in the title. It's in the title. The Caro Kann only stream. It's also on the video. It says Caro Kann only in big capital letters. I don't know if my opponent wanted like d5 and e4, but then I can't abort the game. So just play a Caro Kann. Just play a Caro Kann. Or play into a Caro Kann if you got the white pieces, of course. Can we have increment on the games, please, by the way? Increment on the games. I just got a 3-minute with no increment challenge. I want to try to explain my moves as best as I can, so I do need some increment to give me a little bit of leeway with regards to that. If I wasn't talking, then sure, I could do no increment, but I'm trying to talk as I'm playing, so that's not really viable. So, okay, please send challenges. There we go. Brilliant. 3+2 unrated. Great. Good job. Mr. Gary Young. And E4. Brilliant. Perfect. Good job. All right. What variation are we going to get? We have the exchange. Are we going to get a Panov? Or are we going to get the classic exchange of bishop to d3? We have c3, which is also very normal. Let's go knight c6. Bishop d3 is the main move, and we'll go queen c7, stopping bishop to f4 ideas to prepare to bring our own bishop to d6 with a nice battery in the future. We're also waiting to see knight to f3, so we can go bishop to g4 to pin the knight to the queen. Yep, brilliant. Bishop g4. And this is ideal. This is ideal. h3, do we take this? We can, but we don't have to, I don't think. I don't think we have to. Because if g4 bishop here, basically, in those positions, you have to check to see if knight e5 is a problem, but it isn't, so we don't have to. Here, we're going to delay developing our g knight, because we want to bring it either to f6 or e7. We're not sure yet. So I'll first get the bishop to d6 where it belongs. We're expecting something like knight to d2. Okay, rook e1. Let's go bishop to d6. We have to keep an eye on the fact that the e-pawn is pinned to the king. So, you know, moves like c4 could be kind of annoying. All right, knight bd2. Now I will go knight to f6 because there is no bishop to g5 anymore. Knight to f1. The knight can't come to g3 because I simply win a pawn. Let's get castled. If bishop to g5, I think... Is bishop g6 the move? I think bishop g6 looks good. If takes and takes, the f-pawn being doubled like that can actually be rather good because it keeps this knight out of our position very nicely. You also see the downside of playing pawn h3, which is that the knight can't come to g3 like it wants to because I simply win a pawn. Okay, g5, I could come back. I could also come back to d7, but it feels a bit unnecessary. Let's go bishop g6. If white doesn't take, then I'll play knight in, probably. Okay, it does take. Now, what I would love is if white takes on g6 as well, because after this, I get to go something like king g7, rook h8, and the king is incredibly safe. Basically, what I've done is transported the pawn from h7 to f6, in a sense, because we've had these captures like this. So basically, I've played pawn from h7 to f6 and pawn to g6, which is a really nice setup because it keeps the white knight at bay, and it just gives incredible control over our 5th rank, and also that is just a free pawn. So let's grab it. Let's grab it. I mean, to be fair, the knight actually wasn't posing any threat, but it is a free pawn, so we might as well take it. Let's go king g7. Preparing something like rook h8, also just keeping an eye on all our pawns. Rook e3, queen f4 looks viable, but it's probably easier just to come straight out of the position, just to be safe. You can play for e5 in some of these positions, but I don't think it's really necessary. f5 could be strong. Also, bringing the knight over could be nice. Rook h8 looks viable. I think I'll start with rook h8. Okay, queen f2. Preparing to apply pressure to f6. Could actually go here. Just to tickle the white position. See if he would like a queen trade by any chance. I would love a queen trade since I'm up a pawn. And yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe something like rook h5 at some point. Move this rook over, don't know. I've got to watch for c4 at all times. Okay, yeah, well, the queen trade would be brilliant. And then we'll go pawn to f5. Very, very nice pawn structure. Knight back into f3. I think I can maybe get away with king f6, but I guess we don't need to go for that. I'm actually going to go b5, stopping any c4 ideas, which is the main way for white to try and break our structure. Rook c2 doesn't do anything, I don't think. g5, g4. Okay, let's go king f6 now that the rook is off the f-file. g5, g4 options are interesting, but okay. Let's go a5, taking some space. Something like a4. Maybe bring the knight over. If b3... Well, that just weakens the c pawn, so that would be ideal. We could also open up the a file if we wanted to by playing takes and takes. Yeah, we're up a pawn, but like more than that, we just have a pretty dominant position. Okay, rook b1. Let's bring this rook over. I think this rook's done its job on the h-file. I'm not concerned about knight h4. Rook e2, okay. This knight gets here. Does it really matter? I don't think so. Let's go b4. Now there's no c4. Trying to open up the queen side in my favor. d4 is also weak. Could give this check. King g3. My knight doesn't really have any move. Oh no, I do have this. Coming to b3. That's interesting. I don't want to put it on c6, blocking up the c file. Let's do that. Uh-huh. Yeah, let's... Am I in a rush? Yeah, I don't want to get my knight trapped. Don't want to get it trapped. So let's go knight c1 with tempo. I know he is knight e5, but I'm not really concerned. And then I'll come into b3, which means this pawn can never move. Which means it's very weak. Okay, knight into e5 gives me a free pawn. So I think I should just take it. And then, yeah, this is why I wasn't concerned about the knight being here, because my king is perfectly safe. All right, let's infiltrate. I suppose there was knight to b6 ideas. Let's attack, because I want to go knight to f3, picking up the rook. Because the g-pawn is pinned to the king. Let's push e5, this massive pawn blob. Defend. Keep an eye on b2. Let's go g5 so we can bring the king up here. Might as well... Oh, no, I suppose there's knight here. Check. Alright, in that case, let's go g4. We can run this way. I don't want to get caught in some weird, like, perpetual. Let's take with the king. Yeah, rook h8. King up, then knight to f5 check. So I could take, although this hangs. Though actually, then I have, well, there is this. Okay. Let's block rook g7. Now we're going to threaten mate. Just stroll out of the position, I guess. d3 ideas. Let's push. Oh, I just completely blundered that, but it's okay because I have this. And then I'll pick this up and I'm good. And I'll just sack my rook to keep things simple. Push this pawn, distract the king, and cut the king off. Then we can promote. And deliver checkmate. GG. Very, very interesting game. Yeah, a few interesting ideas explored in the exchange variation. Queen c7, it looks like an odd move, but it's literally just stopping bishop to f4. That's the main purpose. And it's a bit of a waiting move. And here, black is already slightly better after bishop g4, which, I mean, on move 6 is pretty damn good. So yeah, here we can just retreat, castles e6, bishop d6, and, okay, knight f6 is slightly inaccurate. Engine prefers the knight on e7, but this is fine. Bishop g5, bishop back, and yeah, this exchange is massively beneficial to us, because this pawn structure is actually very powerful, as we saw in the game. Yeah, here we just win a pawn, which is obviously very good. Take, take, take. And king g7, repositioning the king. I mean, I was very happy to get a queen trade here, of course. And then the endgame, just stopping the immediate c4 with b5, I was very happy with. Then once we can open up an avenue of attack on the queen side, things should progress relatively smoothly. I mean, knight here was a bit of an oversight. The engine isn't really concerned, because after something like knight b3, knight takes, rook takes, there's no rook c1, and I'm also up 2 extra pawns. And these are very good pawns, and this 2 versus 1 is never materializing, although I did blunder the fork. But so did my opponent, so it's alright. Anyways, let's jump into the next game. I'll probably play this and then get going, because I have got work to do. Alright, what variation? Are we going to get a von Hennig? No, we get a main line. And we get the Tartakower structure. Let me just think. No, we have bishop f5 in this position. That's why you have to start with c3, I think. Okay, he goes c3 anyway, which transposes. The point is, if you take, then queen a5 check picks the bishop back up, by the way. Let's take. Bishop d6. Knight e2, castles. This is, I think, the exact same line that we had the other game. My opponent clearly understands the structure. Bishop d2 is strange. Maybe he's trying to go queenside. Interesting. Let's start with rook e8. Applying a bit of pressure. He does go queenside. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. I mean, b5 is normally the idea, to push b4 at an opportune moment. Let me think. b5. Queen c7 still looks valid, though. There are some lines where h5 is strong. If queen a5, king b1... I'm not sure how I want to continue. Okay, let's start with knight d7. h4, there we go. I think I should be safe enough. Let's go b5. h6, g6 looks completely fine. I always have bishop back if I need it. I could go h6, but then I'm opening myself up to like f4, g4, and g5. Let's go a5, preparing b4. g6. I'm not too concerned about this pawn, to be honest. Not yet, anyway. Bishop f4 might be viable. Probably go bishop back to f8. Just avoiding the trade. If b4, my opponent will probably try and go c4. So we have to bear that in mind. Yeah, let's drop back. Just keeping an eye on the dark squares. Applying constant pressure to the pawn on h6 to make sure my opponent has to keep an eye on it. Fine for now, but it, could become weak in the future. If this rook moves, then we have opportunities of knight c5, where the queen could be hanging on d3. Of course, the rook is currently defending, but let's say a move like rook e1, which looks relatively natural. Okay, d5, knight c5. I guess he wants to bring the queen to d4. I guess that's the point. If c5, queen b5, does that sacrifice make sense? I'm not sure. If takes and takes, knight b6, queen takes. It's an interesting move. c5 takes. I don't have rook b8 because of the bishop. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It should be good, but I don't think it is. D5 is a strong move. Okay, knight C5. Queen D4 doesn't threaten anything, because F6 is defended. Maybe I take then. And then... Oh yeah, the knight... Wait, the knight is also hanging. Hold on, the knight is weak. Now, C5 still didn't work, because after queen takes, the queen defends the knight. But the queen has to keep an eye on the knight. If queen D4, I can just take the knight, and I'm good. So he has to keep an eye on it. So let's say, I don't know, queen D2? Maybe does knight E4. Also does B4. Probably, because if takes and takes, you can't take because the knight hangs. I think this is rather nice, actually. Okay, queen F3. Sure. There's still a lot of pressure on this pawn. If takes, rook takes. I think that's okay. I'd love if takes and takes and takes, of course, but if I take on E2, he will take on D8, and I have nothing. So, queen B6, I think. Queen B6, bishop E3, rook C8. That's true. That's true. Maybe queen C8. Yeah, but then F6 could be a problem. No, let's go for this. I don't think this is a massive problem because the knight is well defended. We might even be able to just go B4 or something. The white king, I'm not sure is all that happy. Like B4, C4. I don't know. Maybe it's alright, but I don't know. B3 looks strong. Can't take it, and if you push, then C4 is very weak. Knight rook C8, C4 could fall. Knight D3 ideas in the future. Maybe knight A4 ideas look nice. Even knight back to E6 at some point looks nice. Got to watch F6, but it is defended for now. I could go rook E6 if needs be, but there is knight D4. Could push F5, but then I open up the diagonal a bit, which I'd like to avoid. Let's go rook C8. Not sure this is good, but we're going to push. Ace H6 could hang, actually. Could be hanging in some lines. I think I'm good. Yeah, GG. My opponent times out, but I am completely winning here. Ooh, that was complicated. That was really complicated. But yeah, I am actually better in this position. B4 is the best move, actually. Okay, I'm glad I found that. I wasted far too much time, though. But yeah, the thing is, even if F6 hangs, even if white gets access to G7, my bishop is defending. That's the issue for white, fundamentally. So, it's a very interesting game. Super, super interesting. Okay, queen A5 is the best move here. And after king here, queen D5. What? Knight G3. Knight E5. You can't take because of takes. Okay, yeah, sure. Queen E... Oh, no. Queen E4 doesn't look great. Say queen F5. Okay, no, fair enough. Queen c2, knight c4. I guess the knight is very strong, to be fair, on the c4 square. Here, here, here. b5. That is a glorious knight. If something like b3, I can infiltrate or I can come back. Either looks fine. So that was a really, really interesting game with the opposite side castling. But push, push, push. Keep everything shut. I mean, I have to do that. Bishop f4 is wrong. Knight b6 is the best move, but bishop f8 is still fine. And I really like the bishop on f8. I would argue it won us the game, to be honest. So he pushes, which I thought was very smart. Knight c5. Okay, knight e5 is slightly better. Why? Take, take, take. Queen b6. Okay, that's slightly complicated. Queen d5. Rook ac8. Okay, that does make sense, actually. Now I have the only dark-squared bishop, and g7 is never a problem. h6 is always under attack because you don't have the dark-squared bishop to defend. And of course, if you don't take the knight and you move the queen, then just c5. And I'm very happy now. So, okay, push here. Queen f3 is best. cd5 is best. Rook d5 is best. Queen b6 is best. Even though this is very concerning, I didn't think my opponent had anything. So I was like, well, even if f6 falls, there's never checkmate. So rook over is bad. b4 is best. Queen b8 is best. Although, to be fair, I mean, where else are you going to put the queen? If you come to b5, you're inviting problems with knight d4 at some point. I mean, not immediately, necessarily, but at some point it's going to be a problem. Wait. My opponent actually sacked his rook because of checkmate. Wow. And if I come back, I lose my queen. That's really, really good move, considering how low on time he was. I guess that's why he used over half his time in this position, but yeah, here knight e4 just ends the game. So, GG. I've got to go. I've got work to do. Sorry, guys. I've really got work to do. But thank you all for tuning into the stream.